Well, hey guys, it is time for base number 3 in our 4-base challenge, and I'm going to do the interior scene from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the one with the meat hook. So let's get cracking. One of the first things I did was to pull some stills from the movie, and you can see this is the main scene, and there's a body that's lying on the table, and the girl is hanging on the hook on this kind of big beamed structure. So we're going to work on building those things. As you scan around the kitchen, you can see there's a stove in the background. Again, you can see that big beamed structure. There's a sink to the left as this guy is exploring the kitchen. We see the white doors, and again, you can see that island there. It also has a meat grinder that's on the corner, so we're going to add one of those to the room. As we look a little closer, a little zoom in on the kitchen, you can see the sink. There's some paper towels over the sink and a couple of windows on either side of the sink, and so we're going to try to get as many details as we can from those pictures and put them in the diorama. So we've got starting off with our walls, we've got our 2 windows, and we have the other wall. I'm only going to do 1 door. I don't have room for the 2 doors that they have there, and I'm going to have to shrink that hanging structure just a little bit in order to fit in the diorama. So lining up my wire table, we're going to cut the foam for those wide structures, those big beamed structures. And I'm using balsa wood to put together things like the stove and the counter. I think that those are going to work much better than try to do that on the foam. So here I'm just cutting out the doors for the stove. The oven had these kind of weird rounded doors on it, and so I'm going to try to work that into the diorama as well. Balsa wood was really easy to work with. I hadn't worked with it before, but it cuts really easily with the X-Acto knife, and you can create all kinds of shapes and even carvings. It sands very easy, so you can shape it rather well, and glues together with the super glue. This is the stove, the oven that I'm gluing up right now. You know, on a lot of dollhouse furniture, they try to make doors that work and things like that. I don't really feel the need to do that on this diorama because it is more of a static scene than it is something that you actually, I guess, play with like you would a dollhouse. But this is very similar to making dollhouse furniture. But I did find this to be a lot of fun to use this wood and try to create these different structures for this diorama. So now I'm going to address the windows and just case them out just like you would do with a regular house. I mean, I'm just putting wood around it like I've done before when I've done some stuff around my own house. So just casing out these windows. Again, using that balsa wood. Going together the window frames now, again using balsa wood, but I thought for the glass I would go ahead and use some plastic. This is from a Chinese takeout tray that I got, so I'm just cutting the top of that off and gluing it onto those frames. It turned out really good, and you can kind of dirty it up. I wanted some dirty windows. I made the countertop, again, out of balsa wood. I'm not going to show you all the cuts. It's not necessary, but you can see how I glued that all together. The little thicker top kind of gives it some added dimension. I wanted to go ahead and make some of the cabinet doors open. This is the hanging cabinet that's going to go over the sink. So I'm cutting it out and just sort of gluing the the cabinet door cracked open. I'm going to do that on one side of this big cabinet as well. So let's glue in the sink. And that's why I have that one open end. Now I'm actually gonna, I couldn't find a faucet that I could really use, so I'm just gonna try to see if I can craft a faucet out of this balsa wood. If not, I may have to go to the toy store and maybe steal something off of like a dollhouse or something. But this is the cheapest option I've got, would be just to create a faucet. Like I said, this balsa wood, it carves and sands very easily, so I'm trying to make kind of a rounded over faucet with this. That's pretty good. I'm going to sand that in a second, but I'm gonna carve a handle out of this wood, maybe sand that down too. Just light and easy is all you need. It doesn't take much to sand this. So using this emery board and some sandpaper, I'm gonna round that out to make it look like a faucet. I think that looks too bad. I'm gonna go with it. Now I'm gonna address the door wall, and like I said, I'm only gonna do one door. You can see that there's some trim work that goes around the door frame itself, and then the door is kind of a 4-panel door, which we're just gonna cut balsa wood and let the foam be the panels. It looks elevated because I'm gonna glue this, the way that I'm gluing it up, the floor is actually gonna marry up to the bottom of this board, so the door has to be pronounced by about an inch off the ground. Now you see, this is just some of those big giant wood pieces that they use for the middle table as well as the hanging structure, and so I'm just carving in some wood grain. Now I'm going to glue on the doors to the cabinet, and I'm just gluing those flat, no space needed. You can see some fig drawer fronts too. I'm not gluing them straight. I think this is more of a derelict house, and so I'm going to have these doors kind of a little bit off. It's way too white, and so I'm going to have to stain everything up. So just like I stain the tile floor, I'm going to stain the appliances and the walls and the cabinetry. Just pushing a lot of water into just regular paint, that acrylic paint that we use. This is the gal I'm going to use for the girl on the hook. And again, I'm using a wrestling figure. They're the ones that have pretty good articulation, and they're reasonably well priced, so you can get them for fairly cheap. This girl, I'm going to modify her quite a bit. I'm going to cut off these knee pads, and she's got these big old wrestling boots, and so I'm going to cut those down. I'm going to use my nippers and take off as much plastic as I can, but then I'm going to get my Dremel tool out and we'll sand that down as well. Give her just real ankles. It'll look like she just has shoes on when I'm done with her, once we paint her up. The problem with these wrestling figures is the faces. I mean, they all smile. I couldn't find a girl screaming, and you know, this girl hanging on a meat hook certainly wouldn't be smiling. So I'm going to do my best to, I guess, sculpt a screaming face. I don't know how this is going to work because I've never sculpted anything before, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm just using some regular air dry clay. So the problem with air dry clay is it's a little on the soft side. It doesn't hold its shape as well as the regular oven hardening clay, but we're gonna try to make this work. One problem I found in trying to do this is the head is so small. It's about 3/4 of an inch tall, and it's really difficult to put in some fine details, well, when you've never done it before. So I'm just going to do my best to make a screaming face. I gotta be honest, as I finish this, the face looks a little more manly than it does with not very many feminine qualities to this face. It really looks like Patrick Stewart is what it looks like, but you know, I just did the best I could to make a face and make it screaming. So I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna get it all painted. So I'm gonna continue to stain up the sink and cabinets, just make them look really grimy. This is the shelf that goes over the stove, so that's one of the details that we saw in the pictures at the beginning. I'm just gonna glue that in. And the walls had this weird butcher paper over them, so I'm gonna do what they did in the pictures and put butcher paper over the walls. Just do it on the top half of the walls and I guess the wood trim. They don't care about getting blood and gross on it, but now I'm just going to glue in those windows. Now that they've had time to dry, we'll glue those into the wall. Unlike a lot of the other dioramas, I've had to leave these walls all separated so that I could work on them. I couldn't glue everything up in order for me to do all the tiny details, so I left gluing the walls up toward the end. Right now what I'm doing is I'm going to try to make the hanging light. The light is this conical shaped metal lantern kind of looking thing, so I'm going to make it out of cardboard, see what I can do here. Just cutting a circle, kind of bending it into shape, making a cone. This chipboard that I'm using glues up edge to edge rather well, which makes this job a little bit easier. I'm just going to drop a bead of super glue right here and press these pieces together. It's going to hold great. There's also kind of a little lip on the end of this, so I'm going to glue another piece of cardboard down. That's what we got. I bought a male wrestling figure to be the guy that's on the table. They never show what happens to him. You just see some blood dripping off the table and off of his arm, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that Leatherface had already done some bad things to him, so I'm going to dress him up like that. And here I'm just painting the screaming face as well. Again, just doing all the paint jobs now. Here's the light fixture, just making it look metallic. I like how that turned out though. I think that turned out rather well. Unlike the other figure that I painted the face, I did get some brushes so I could do some finer detail work, but all I did was put some eyebrows and, you know, very small details. Just dressing up the rest of the diorama now, putting on a doorknob. I've already put some blood splatter on the walls. Finally get to glue up the walls together so you can see how this is all going to come together. Put it in the oven. And now the counter with the sink. I put some of the little details. There was some pot holders hanging off the bottom of this shelf, so I'm going to do that. I found some kind of dollhouse dishes. I'm going to dirty those up, put some glue, some tacky glue down, and just some debris that I have in a just keep jars of this stuff in case I need it. It turned out well, so I'm going to paint all that debris that I glued on, paint that up. And then I've got these tiny little glass bottles that I got off of Amazon, so I'm dirtying those up as well. Here's our poor little wrestling guy. I painted jeans on him, and I also put some wounds using that same air hardening clay. So now I'm just gonna make him as gory as I can. Just dropping the little details now into the diorama. I've put some dirt on the surface of the counter, as well as all those little stains. I've got the dishes that are all dirty. I'm going to load up that shelf, because in the picture it was loaded up with some jars and some bottles. So I'll put some of these little tiny glass bottles that I found, a couple little cans, put some on the counter as well. Apparently cannibals don't keep house real well, so this is a real dirty looking kitchen. Here's the hanging structure. I couldn't do 2 hooks, so I'm just doing 1 because it just didn't have space. But now you can kind of see what all these little pieces look like. That's a little meat grinder I found. All right, well, base number 3 is in the books. I want to tell you, I put in more man hours in this particular diorama than I have on any of the ones that I've done so far. And I think that was because there's just so many details to this particular scene. You know, we know from the movie that this is one of just those hallmark scenes in cinema, in horror movies that, I mean, when you see it, it is just something else. So I learned a lot though in doing this particular one. Of course, from my other video, you'll see the tile base that I did. But for this particular one, trying to sculpt a face is really difficult. So I am not a sculptor. I think given enough time, I could, if I had enough practice, that I could probably figure it out. I just didn't have the kind of time for this particular diorama. You can tell it's a person, but man, she is not pretty. She's not going to win any awards for sculpting, that is for sure. So, but that's okay. I think the most fun things about this particular diorama, the things that I really enjoyed the most, was just trying to do the detective work and seeing exactly what was going on in this scene, and then doing my very best to emulate it. And that was a ton of fun. It was a lot of fun to really zoom in on these pictures and try to get what were some of these tiny little details and see if I could incorporate them into this build itself. Learning to do things to make them look metal, I think, was another thing that I figured out. Like this light fixture that's right here, made out of cardboard, but yet painted to look metal.
and I found that I took a couple of cues from some of my McFarlane Spawn toys, especially the clown. He's got some guns that have a nice texture on them, but obviously made of plastic, but they look metal. And so I took a sort of a deep look into what they did with that and tried to do it here. Turned out pretty great. I was actually quite happy with it. This is kind of a violent scene, and so I'm not one of those people that really enjoys just the gratuitous violence, and so, but given the subject matter and what it is, it's kind of what it called for. So I haven't put anything down permanently in this, and so if I want to, kind of, create more of an antiseptic scene, I can certainly take the most bloody of the bodies. I can certainly pull him out, and I can take out some of the more, I guess, gruesome elements. I didn't glue those down, just so that if I wanted to display it differently, I could. But let's be honest, most people who are enjoying, this channel and these dioramas, we're into it. It's cool. So as I displayed here at my house on it, maybe when the grandkids or the kids come over, I'll change that. But for now, I'm going to display it like this. So I am really happy with this. I'm really happy with the details and how it came out. So happy to get base number 3 in the books. We're looking for the next one, and as I get your reactions from this particular video, remember I'm going to choose between 2. That was going to be the Predator jungle scene, or we're going to do a rooftop Batman scene. So either something that's more urban rooftop, or we'll do something more jungle, and I am letting you guys vote on it. It's pretty close right now, so if you have a preference, go ahead and vote. Rooftop Batman, do so in the comments. Rooftop Batman or Jungle Predator, and we'll take scene number 4, the last base in this little challenge, and we'll put that up there. Hey, thanks for watching Figured Out. Thank you for just joining me on this journey. We've gotten some more subscribers. We've gotten some more people watching. I love that. It's fantastic, and so we're headed toward 1,000 subscribers as fast as we can. So the more that you like and comment and subscribe and share, I mean, all those things just are a huge help. So I would appreciate if you've enjoyed the video that you would do all those things. That would be great. Thanks for watching Figured Out. We will see you soon.